we've got any banks, institutions? We've got any merchants? Merchants, banks? Great. Okay. So we're going to be talking today about. Well, we're going to talk specifically about the growth of payments in the region with one of the scale companies that's come out of Saudi Arabia. I don't know, any of you that were with us yesterday, we had a very good panel conversation talking about the fintech opportunity in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot happening there. The market's fully opening up. They've launched open banking. And today we're going to talk to Geidea, which is a payment tech company scaled out of Riyadh, now in 3 markets, UAE also, and also Egypt, and really talking about the growth opportunity for retail payments, for e-commerce, and for payments across this sort of vibrant, rapidly growing region. So with that, please, perhaps we can welcome Mr. Laurent Dhaeyer from Geidea. Laurent, thanks for being with us this morning. Good to see you here. Geidea, relatively a new company and a scale business. I'm not sure it's a story that necessarily all of us in the room will know. Tell us a little bit about the journey so far, the success that you've achieved, and I guess really how did that come about over the sort of relatively short lifespan of the business?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's not just a recent business. We've been in Saudi now more than 10 years, right? So it's been a little while. We grew from partnership. We grew from serving the Saudi banks. In the meantime, fast forward, we now have 750,000 terminals. So we're talking really scale up here. Everywhere in the kingdom, and since a year also Egypt and the UAE. So we now have 3 markets that we serve with a very high local, high touch sort of approach.
And you moved from Saudi Arabia into the UAE and Egypt. At what point in that journey did you decide actually now we know enough about this market that there's opportunities elsewhere? What was the trigger to move into these other places?
Look, there are plenty of triggers. The Egypt market is very interesting because it's a big market, 100 million population, clearly 3-4 years backwards in terms of where they stand in payment, for obvious reasons. All the good things we know here, Apple Pay, similar sort of processes, are not really enabled in Egypt at scale because 2 years ago there were hardly any smartphone, and your bank cards are not NFC enabled. So everything that happens in the rest of the world is actually not available there. Now they're going to catch up, right? So there's going to be leapfrogging. They're certainly going to come and be one of the biggest market in the region in 2 years, right? So there we anticipate the growth a little bit. UAE has always been the most mature market in the region, so it was natural to be here. Also, large regional players are typically in here first, and then want to expand to usually Saudi and Egypt. So that's really the golden triangle for us.
And when you look across Gulf, wider MENA, where and what is exciting? Where might be next on the roadmap?
Well, I mean, after the golden triangle, it becomes a lot more difficult. Specifically in the payment business, every market you want to serve, you need local license, local chief compliance, local chief risk, local CFO, whatever. That's a very expensive hobby. Right, so it's worse the pain when you do that in a big market, less so when it's a smaller market. Also, the level of maturity in the neighboring countries is pretty high. If you look at payments in Kuwait, for example, they didn't wait for us. Right, everything is there. So high price to pay and then difficult to penetrate. Relatively small market, not so appealing. Right?
What's the business case, I suppose?
Yeah. So I think the next frontier might be more the likes of Pakistan, similar sort of structure than Egypt, little chaotic introduction of VAT that you want to enforce, inclusion coming up, middle class growing. So that's probably more the direction. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's two directions we can go there. Competition on the one side, the kind of competitive landscape, but also, more importantly, perhaps, regulation. I think we were talking a little bit a moment ago about, the complexities of navigating the regulatory landscape and the practicalities for small companies that are also trying to innovate in the space. And clearly you want to work with partners as well. Tell us a little bit about what that's been like. You started with Saudi and negotiating with the regulator there, then you moved into other markets. Harmonization clearly is not something that's on the cards for this region for a while. So how you sort of managed to negotiate that process over the period, and tell us a little bit about how you built those relationships to make those jumps into those new markets.
I mean, the journey is not so complex, and the regulators are accommodating. I think they set up pretty clear regulatory frameworks and stuff. So I would be relatively positive on that. But it still takes time. It takes money. It takes focus. And well, ideally, you would want to focus more on the market than on the regulator, right? So it's not easy. And every new market is a new adventure, a new regulator, a new set of rules. So it gets easier, but not necessarily faster. So yeah, it's a complex journey. I think the credibility that we've built in Saudi really helped us in the other markets as well, where regulators welcome us in a different way than they would with just any startup, because they know we've done it before. They know we've done it at scale. So it helps us, but it remains difficult.
And has it got easier to get access to the banks, the kind of key stakeholders in the market, the regulator over the period? Are they now much more receptive than previously?
Look, I mean, we've always had a relatively warm welcome, right? So the guys are always happy to partner. We solve problems that banks typically are not necessarily super good at. We deal a lot with the mass market, with the smaller merchants, with micro merchants, mid-sized merchants. Well, those are not the key focus of most of the banks. So usually very welcoming for partnerships. I wouldn't say it has evolved or improved. It was always good, actually.
Let's talk a little bit then about competition. Again, we were talking about the kind of the future for Geidea in the sense of the sort of the exit and the financial roadmap. The market has got more competitive here, hasn't it? There are more players in the payments space, and there are some other scale players. Some that have spun out of incumbents. We were here with Mashrek yesterday. There's Network International, and then of course there's a whole flock of fintech coming into the region, as well as homegrown activity. At the same time, we've had a pandemic. The virtual economy, the digital economy has taken off, and we're seeing this sort of blending between channels, between physical bricks and mortar retail and online, as traditional retailers understand that they need to sell through digital channels. So how are you navigating that sort of that layered complexity and the competition? And how are you understanding where you might fit within some of these new opportunities?
Well, I think the name of the game is co-opetition, right? That's what we do. So on the one hand, we all compete for the same merchants, and on the other side, we sort of need to help each other. So the regulator in Saudi in particular is looking at enabling, I think, 300 or 400 fintechs by 3 years down the line. It's massive. Now, the real value should be looked at from a market point of view. The real value is in them coming with disruptive sort of value proposition, not to rebuild an infrastructure in the back, right? So we're trying to help the regulator, and even to a degree help our competitors beat us, right? By providing them the tool to go to market quicker, and that also helps us essentially in terms of spreading the cost on a broader basis. So competition is the game. Banks on the one side, fintechs on the other side, and more merchant ecosystems, big delivery groups and stuff that really federate a huge amount of merchants around them. So yeah, we sort of friends and enemies with everyone.
The frenemy approach. Yesterday we were talking about payments. We had your CEO on stage here, in a sort of broad sense of the pay tech opportunity. In the world that we are now sort of we are now in, where do you see as the kind of the exciting things to look for? And I suppose really, when it comes to the customer, the actual end user, not the merchant in the middle that you serve directly, but the actual end user, are you having to think a little bit more carefully about how you talk to the end user, whether that's a small business, a large merchant, or a consumer, or a large enterprise customer? Are you having to think sort of, what it is that's going to solve their problems? And is that the entry point then for fintech innovations that can come to you and say, actually, we can solve a particular end user problem that would communicate or complement what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, our model is really a B2B2C model, right? So we have to speak to consumers as they are the customers of our customers. Anything related to making their experience better makes a ton of sense. For example, now you see, especially in this market, you see a lot of self-checkout. You are on the beach and you had lunch. Instead of having to wait 10 minutes for the waiter to come and bring the bill, just scan the code, retrieve the bill and pay and go out. These are experience enriching sort of opportunities. We're looking for those, right? Now, you don't reinvent the flows every week. Right? There are only so many use cases around payment. So our direction is to go much broader than payment and really help merchants with their core business. If you like, fundamentally changing the equation, instead of the merchant doing all the hard work, getting a customer in, getting an order in, and then we show up at the end of the journey and say, well, give me 2%, right? Irrespective of where they go, but still, we want to change that equation and say, well, how can we be your partner? How can we be your catalyst for growth, right? And that's why we introduced this new point of sale solution where we help them manage their whole business, inventory management, customer management, loyalty, campaigning. Now, think about SAP or another ERP sort of software. If you receive that in a box with a key for the license, you still don't know how to use it, right? So the tool is great, but you don't know how to leverage it. So that's the extra mile that we bring, where we say, well, how can we help a small restaurant market themselves like the bigger chains can do, and bringing that to them. That means now we grow their top line rather than discussing on reducing their bottom line.
I mean, you bring an interesting point there, isn't it? Adoption, something that the payment industry has been talking about for a long time. It took a pandemic for us to work out, the average consumer to work out what a QR code was, or why it was useful, or why we needed this stuff. Of course, we can't wait for a pandemic every time to drive an innovation forward. Do you see now, given the scale that you're at, you can play a more active role in driving adoption of innovations, and is that perhaps an extra kind of complementarity to working with some of the fintechs that are coming to you and saying, hey, we've got this great solution, we think it'll work, or we think it'll fit?
Look, I think in the region, the adoption is massive, is impressively quick, right? Apple mentioned to us that the adoption of Apple Pay, when we introduced that in Saudi, was, I think, the second or the third fastest worldwide, right? Young population, banked, equipped, it goes super fast. So any great idea in terms of consumer experience in Saudi is going to work. Egypt is going to take another couple of years before everybody is on smartphone and used to it, but it's definitely coming as well. I mean, just the difference in the last 12 months in Egypt is massive. So that's going to come as well. And Dubai is a lot more, let's say, mature already. So you'll have most of the gateways, most of the payment companies already offering that. So adoption is really not an issue here.
And in Egypt, of course, a much larger population and also a large unbanked population. So are you seeing are you seeing that you're kind of helping, resolve the age-old problem of the unbanked? Are you kind of finding a way with, via merchants, as more people have smartphones? Are you kind of seeing that you're actually playing a bit of an active impact role as well, or is it too early to say that?
Well, it's maybe an overstatement to be perfectly frank. I mean, we help merchant and we help the society in general in making more of the businesses, let's say, legit, right? Reporting their transaction, collecting VAT. this is more where we act rather than really purely on the consumer side. The consumer side of things is more down to banks and other fintechs that are more on the consumer side. We are happy to stick with merchants.
Very good. This is your opportunity. If you're a fintech, Laurent's companies, they're actively engaging with different organizations, with partners. They're a pro-innovation company. Do we have any questions? And then we'll have to close off the session. Be brave. Anybody? No questions. Laurent, let's close this off then. What are you excited about for your business in the future? What if we come back here next year or the year after that? Where will we be? Or where what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, so the new business we've created is a business that we can scale to 20 countries, right? Much easier to scale the point of sale software side of business compared to payment. So we will open new geographies with that. We will also open new verticals, being more specific to really answer the specific needs of each of the subsegments of retail, for example. I mean, a mini market has very different needs than a apparel shop, right? So really go in the details there. So that would be one direction. The other direction is more financial products and offering an end-to-end sort of ecosystem where those merchants who use our point of sale solution will be offered a possibility to finance their procurement, right? If I'm running your till management and I'm running your payment, it's very easy to underwrite you and say, well, I'm going to finance your purchase. And by the way, because I also take your payment, I can take repayment directly from what you gather. So these are really more seamless, embedded sort of processes. So more geographies, more segments, more financial products, and then a host of added value services where, as I was explaining, helping SMEs market themselves better, deal with their accounting better, all the things that are actually quite complex and that they should not really be focusing on, rather leave that to us. Yeah.
And of course, more data to back all of that up and see where you go next. And I just then finally, the company's of a scale already. Are you looking for investors? What does the sort of the financial picture look like for you over the next couple of years? What are the hopes?
Well, we're not looking for investors. We are very happy with our existing investors. We're heading to a public offering probably a year down the road, maybe 2 years down the road. The global market conditions are not great at this stage.
A little challenging to navigate, let's say.
A little challenging. So we look more at the public listing in say anywhere between 12 and 24 months.
Good. Well, we hope to be here next year when that's on the cards, happen or even possibly happen. So please join me in thanking Laurent for a great conversation this morning.